Hi guys, so today is obviously a little bit different. I've got a different background. I'm in my bedroom and I'm doing a sit down talking video, which I haven't done. I don't think I've ever done actually. On my previous vlog I mentioned that I'm in the process of moving house, and I wondered if some of you would be interested in kind of a house series. So this is going to be video number 1, and this is all going to be about the boring stuff basically. So how I saved for a house, how I got a mortgage, what you need to be looking for, what you need to be saving for if you are thinking of purchasing your first home. I wanted to do this because I'm only 24, and I think if somebody had told me this when I was 20 and just sat down and explained to me, I would have been really grateful. To start things off, I just wanted to do a bit of a background. I've got everything I want to talk to here all written down, pointers anyway. But I just want to talk a little bit of a background about my house history, because I've moved quite a lot for my age. So when I was 20/21, was it 21? 20 I think it was. No, 21 maybe. I moved to my first ever house with my fiance, James, who I'm now married to, my husband. Because of my job at the time, we had to move to an area that we weren't familiar with. It wasn't far, it was about 50 minutes from where I'm living now, but it was away from my family, it was away from my friends. I wasn't sure of the area. So anyway, we purchased there, we stayed there for a year. Because my job then changed, we were able to move back home, so we sold that house and we bought the one we're in now. But now we are moving into our third owned house. So for 24 years old, we're both 24, I don't think that's that bad. So now that I've told you a little bit of my background, I'm going to go into kind of my advice, my top tips, my experience about buying a house. So number 1, I would say research. If you were deciding to buy a house on your own, or with a partner, or with a friend, or whoever you've decided to buy a house with, it is so important to A, know what you're looking for, and B, make sure that you're both on the same page. I think that's a massive thing. I think a lot of people, especially these days, don't realise how little you get for your money in certain places, and how much you can get for your money if you move like 10 minutes down the road. So it's really important. Once you know a location that you've really got your heart set on, go online and see what you can get for your money in that area. So for example, if you think you want a 3-bedroom house, Google or search or go on Rightmove or Zoopla or whatever you want to go on, and see what the house values and the houses that are up for sale are for in that area. That is so important, because if you want to live in London compared to if you want to live just outside the city, or if you want to live in Cardiff or just outside, the house value can fluctuate ridiculously. So you need to know what you can get for your money. This takes me on to step number 2. My step number 2 is you need to go and see either a financial advisor, or you need to go online and if you're not completely serious about it yet, if you just kind of want an idea, go online and use a mortgage calculator or a mortgage affordability calculator, I think they're called. You can go onto any bank these days on their website and you can type in your salary, and it'll ask you all sorts of questions. It may ask you what deposit you'll be putting down, etc., to see how much you can borrow from the bank. That is really important, because there's no point setting your heart on a 4-bedroom house somewhere if there's no way you're going to be able to afford it. Banks will only allow you to borrow so much, so even if your credit rating is amazing, or even if your credit rating is amazing but then your salary isn't, or your salary is amazing but your credit rating isn't, or you've got a lot of outgoings, so you've got a lot of lease payments or anything like that, the bank will take all of these into considerations. It's really important that you know these things before you have your heart set on something and then it all comes crashing down. I need a cup of tea, hang on. So what I did personally is I used a mortgage calculator online to get a rough idea, and then when I knew kind of what I wanted, we had a friend who was a financial advisor, who is still our financial advisor, and I went to him. I found it really reassuring, because with a financial advisor, they will sit down, they will go through every mortgage provider there is, what's best for you. They'll basically have them all. It's basically like Money Supermarket. They will literally take you through everything and go through your options with you. That's really important as well, because if you are a first-time buyer, there are certain things that you may forget about that you need to take into consideration. So for example, for me, my first ever house, I was buying right when I was going into a new job. There were only so many mortgage providers that would allow me to move into a house on a probationary period in my employment. I went with Nationwide at the time. Some of them were really funny about it. Some mortgage providers are extremely strict, some a little bit more lenient. So that was good to know, be told by a financial advisor. That's something that I would never have known myself. So there are certain mortgage providers that may take you on apprenticeships. If you're in an apprenticeship, there are certain mortgage advisors that won't. There are certain mortgage advisors which will allow these like help to buy schemes and things, or will ask for a certain percentage deposit. There are some will ask for 5, 10, 15. It is so important that you know what you're getting yourself in for, and especially to get the best deal for you. It's your first, especially if it's your first house. You don't want to be tied into a mortgage provider which is crazy ridiculous. If you go directly to a bank and you ask for an actual formal appointment, they may give you a decision in principle. And what a decision in principle is basically they go through whether they would allow you a mortgage in principle. So they will go through roughly what the bank will base the mortgage on, and then if they feel like the bank is likely to give you a mortgage, they will give you a decision in principle. It is this document that will allow you to be taken seriously when you go to an estate agent as a first time buyer. If you rock up to an estate agent and say, I'm interested in buying that house, and ask to put an offer on, the likelihood of it is they will ask you if you are eligible for a mortgage. The only thing is, if you go to loads of different banks and try and get a decision in principle from loads of different banks, it will have an effect, or it puts a footprint, I think it's called, onto your credit score. So you have to be careful with that. That's why I would recommend go to a financial advisor, see what you can afford, and then just pick one mortgage provider to stay with. So that would be my advice with that. If you are a first time buyer, you are going to have an extreme advantage over anyone else in the market who is trying to sell a house and who's interested in the same house that you're interested in. Anyone selling a house wants a first time buyer for the sole reason that you haven't got a chain behind you and you're going to be able to just get your mortgage and move straight in. However, saying that, when you are going to the estate agents, it is important that you go prepared so they take you seriously. We went with a decision in principle, like I said, from the banks to say that they were allowing us to borrow X amount of money. The third point is how it's saved from my deposit. Obviously, the most frustrating thing of buying a house is the fact that you have to have a deposit behind you. I mean, so many people rent for that sole reason that they can't save a deposit, and it's bloody hard work. It just so happened that when we got engaged, we had an engagement party, and we had a large engagement party, and we had a lot of gifts, and we did say to everybody at the time, look, we're saving for a house, we don't want any gifts because we haven't got a house, we don't want any home gifts, but we would really appreciate whatever you're going to give us in monetary value. That sounds cheeky, but I did the same for my wedding. To be honest, people prefer to do that if they don't know what to buy you. They can just go basically and put money in a card. It saves them a job, it saves you, it's what you want, great, win-win. So we did that, so we saved a lot of money like that. We also we just saved. If you really, really want it, it may take you 5 years, but you need to make sure that you are strict about it. Set up direct debit or a transfer each month, an automatic transfer to a different savings account, and make sure that that savings account is very difficult to access. Do not have a debit card for that account. That's a big no-no. You don't want to be able to be just withdrawing money when you like. Make sure that you have tabs on what you've got in there, and any extra money that you get, you can also put in there. For example, for me, in my position in work, I sometimes get bonuses, or now the dividends. So when they were coming in, that's how I save. They go into my savings account or our savings account. If James gets any bonuses or anything, or expenses or anything to do with work, they will go in. It took a bloody long time, but we did it. You need to think about the fees that you're going to have to pay to the solicitor, and also the survey or conveyancing fees as well. So a solicitor, typically where I live, will charge me about £800 for just the purchasing of a house, and around £800 for the selling of a house. So obviously bear in mind, if you're purchasing and selling a house, then you're going to have to pay that twice. You're going to be looking at double that price. Obviously that fee can completely depend on which solicitor you go to, but that's my personal experience. So make sure you budget those in as well when you're budgeting into saving for a house. Don't underestimate the cost of like recarpeting, painting. It all adds up. Like, you know, people just think, oh, we'll budget for a new kitchen or a new bathroom. If you are only planning to do cosmetic work to the house, you still need to make sure you have it in the budget, or be prepared to live in a house that you're not 100% happy with until you can afford to make it the way you want it to. The next thing I would say is be savvy, and with this I mean, make sure that you're getting a good deal, make sure that you're cheeky with your offer. If you are a first-time buyer, you have like I said before, you have a massive advantage over everyone else. In my experience, now that I'm selling this house, I was prepared to accept a lower offer on this house that I'm selling if the offer came from a first-time buyer, just because the house that I liked was waiting and I knew I would lose that if I was in a chain. So you are in a really good position, so be extremely cheeky with your offer. You're not going to offend anyone to the point where they're not going to accept a higher offer, and no matter what you offer on a house, they will reject it and ask for more. No matter what you offer, unless you go in at asking price, they will reject it and ask for more. So be cheeky with your offer. Like I said, if you're up against anyone else and they're not first-time buyers, you're in an extremely good position. So bear that in mind. They're basically my tips. That's how I got my mortgage and I saved. The key is to remember that it's not forever, because when you're saving your balls off, which you will be doing, it's very important to remember that you're not going to be saving that extreme forever. When you're living in a house is basically the same as rent, basically. So the mortgage you pay is usually going to be the same, or even sometimes, in some cases, a little bit less than a rent you will be paying somewhere else. So if you can afford to rent somewhere, you can afford to live somewhere. It's just obviously the startup cost of the deposit, the solicitor's fees and things that are a massive obstacle to people. So they are my tips. I hope these were helpful. My next ones will be a little less boring and formal than this, and maybe a little bit more fun and enjoyable. But obviously I needed to start with this one to just tell you all about the boring stuff and the adult stuff, you know, the things that none of us want to really think about. We just want to think about the plush curtains, don't we, and the cream sofa and the nice carpet, let's be honest. But we have to do this part first. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!